Good morning and happy anniversary to Shumei Europe. I am delighted to join you in spirit from America for this special ceremony. My name is Alan Yumai, and I am the Vice President of Shumei America. Today, I would like to talk about how we can transcend time, space, and differences of culture, religion, tradition, and language, and thus establish unity in diversity. Karakami is a traditional method of pattern printing. By using a carved wood block called hangi in Japanese, and generally applying a single color to the block, artists are able to make beautiful and intricate patterns. These patterns are then applied to traditional Japanese sliding doors known as fusuma, wallpaper, and other traditional Japanese paper objects. Karakami was introduced from China into Japan 1,300 years ago. When it began being used as writing paper upon which to compose waka poetry, Karakami became very popular among imperial court officers and aristocrats. Japanese craftsmen began to produce karakami domestically about 700 years ago, after which karakami began to be used for interior decoration. In 1624, a karakami studio known as Karacho was established in Kyoto. The founder produced paper while also serving as a samurai guard at the imperial palace. Later, the founder's son began producing paper full-time, and from that time onwards, the family became active in providing karakami papers for both the palace and government. Throughout its long history, down to the present day, Karacho Studio and other karakami producers as well have had to surmount numerous difficulties that have included the Great Tenmei Fire in 1788, the Hamaguri Gate Rebellion in 1864. Unfortunately, many of the traditional wood blocks that had been used throughout its long history for printing were burned, and during these Kyoto disturbances and fires. As the Industrial Revolution reached Japan during the latter half of the 19th century, because of the emergence of machines that mass-produced cheap paper, many of the businesses that had been devoted to karakami production shut down. As Japan became more westernized, the lifestyles of Japanese people did away from karakami in the home. The karakami specialists in Kyoto abandoned the trade. The same was true of the karakami specialists in Tokyo area, many of whom lost their wood blocks during the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923, or the bombing of Tokyo in 1945, forcing them out of business. Despite these difficult times, karakami was crafted at the Karacho studio has managed to survive and has helped preserve the traditional art of karakami through time. Today, Karacho's studio houses more than 600 hangi wood blocks, which have been carved by 11 generations of craftsmen. How can people rediscover what is becoming a lost practice, karakami paper, today, in an environment where Japanese-style rooms and the paper sliding doors and the craftspeople who made them have become increasingly rare? Thinking about this, a couple Akihiko Toto and his wife Aiko Senda, both Karakami artisans and related to the founding family of Karacho Studio, decided to work towards this by bringing Karakami more into a mainstream world of art. They felt that the same way that people love paintings or photographs, if they were to show Karakami paper more as an art form than the more pragmatic craftsmanship of the past, then it would appeal to more people throughout the world. In 2008, Akihiko Toto created a new milestone in the history of Karakami paper with creation of new original Karakami artworks. Shumei's spiritual leader, Kaicho Sensei, saw one of Mr. Toto's new works, Inochi, which means life, and she decided to add it to the Shumei collection. There was some disagreement amongst some of the few remaining Karakami craftspeople between the pragmatism of old and the long-term viability and survival of an ancient art form. Kaicho Sensei's recognition was a significant step in demonstrating to the rest of the world that the Karakami had earned a place in the greater world of contemporary art. Akihiko Toto and Aiko Senda have now founded a new brand for Karakami art called Kira Karacho, thus pioneering a new field in Karakami paper art, a medium with a history of over 1,000 years. Through 400 years of their own family's history, they made it possible for this traditional Japanese beauty to be appreciated by people around the world and be reincorporated into today's lifestyle. I think that the Karakami transcended time and space by virtue of its inherent essence and beauty, as well as its recognition as art. I was very impressed with his transformation. Then I thought, how might this apply to my own work and that of Shumei working for the happiness of the people around the world through Meishu-sama's teachings and philosophy? How can I transform myself, born in Japan and working in the West, with a philosophy born in the East and brought to the West, through time and space? By way of answering that profound question, I would like to share with you the following excerpts from Meishu-sama's teachings. Vertical and horizontal. To understand the truth about heaven and earth, it is imperative to know the meaning of two concepts. I frequently use that of the vertical and the horizontal. What is most important to know about these two concepts is their symbolic meaning. The sun is represented by fire, which burns vertically, and the moon by water, which flows horizontally. In line with this, the essential qualities of the sun and the moon are respectively height and width. If we compare the nature of fire and water, fire represented by yang is characterized as spiritual, and water represented by yin as material. And the basic characteristics of these two elements can be found in the two distinctive cultures of the East and the West. The East, symbolically described as vertical, is spiritual in nature, and the West, noted for the advancement of science, is more material in nature. In the sphere of religion, Buddhism is vertical, evidenced by the Chinese character for the word sutra, which plainly means vertical. Buddhism puts an emphasis in ancestral rituals and family lines and seek a personal attainment of enlightenment. Christianity, on the other hand, with its emphasis on neighborly love, puts a greater emphasis on relationships such as that between a husband and wife, and does not stress a devotion to ancestors. Represented by water, it has been, in every respect, a globally expansive movement. The history of the world up until today has been characterized by two different cultural traditions. Eastern culture, which leans towards spirituality, and the Western culture, which leans towards materialism. And since both cultures veer towards extremes and are not integrated with each other, nothing goes well for them. This situation does not bring any real solution to humankind's suffering, and the unstable condition of the world never seem to end. Observing this, I believe that the creation of an ideal world culture is not possible without the harmonious union of the vertical and horizontal. So what we concerned us is when, if ever, these two aspects will be united. And to your surprise, that very moment is now. Our mission is to assist this important event, which is perfectly symbolized by the design of our organization's emblem. As I repeatedly say, Cannon's way is explained by the concept of vertical and horizontal. It is characterized as being neither vertical nor horizontal, and yet both. In other words, it never remains slanted towards only one particular aspect. Cannon's way is a balanced approach to life that is flexible enough to be applied to all situations. In line with this, our conduct also needs to be consistent with Cannon's way. When we act, it is very important to locate our heart within the central part of the connects, vertical and horizontal. In a way, this connecting point is common sense, and this is the underlying reason that we set a high value on common sense. This ends the excerpt from Meisama's teachings, vertical and horizontal. I'd like to highlight Meisama's point about common sense from this teaching. He tells us, quote, I believe that the creation of an ideal world culture is not possible without the harmonious union of the vertical and the horizontal. Our mission is to assist this important event. And when we act, it is very important to locate our heart within the central point that connects vertical and horizontal. In a way, this connecting point is common sense. End quote. And Meishu-sama speaks again about this ideal state of mind in his teaching titled Common Sense. Quote, it seems clear to me that the ultimate aim of spiritual practice is the creation of complete and perfect men and women. As their spirituality deepens, those who are truly committed steadily become more and more ordinary, less and less separated from the central norms of humankind. This increasing normality shows that they are digesting and assimilating the essentials of faith. They must become so practical and sensible in behavior and speech, so warm and friendly in their relationships with others, that the question of what faith they follow never need arise. The impression they should give others is that of a gentle spring breeze. They must deal with people with modesty and kindness, working towards the greater good of society and the happiness of other people. End quote. Based on Meishu-sama's teachings, we can ask ourselves, what is the important point for actions as students of Meishu-sama? Shumei's three core activities are Jorei, appreciation of art and beauty, and promotion of natural agriculture. What is the central point where these three core activities meet? It can fairly be said that all three of Shumei's core activities are centered around art. Meishu-sama said, Jorei is an art of life, and natural agriculture is an art of agriculture. Besides the core activities of Jorei and natural agriculture, the third of Shumei's core activities is fostering an appreciation for art and beauty, which among other things is exemplified by the creation of the Miho Museum. Art itself can be said to include many different forms, some of them quite extremes. Shumei's core activity of fostering art is rather more specific and seek the essence of beauty. It can therefore be said that the connecting point in Shumei's three core activities is the heart that seeks beauty. When we cultivate the heart that seeks beauty through our three core activities, we will move toward the central point where spirituality blossoms into common sense in our day-to-day lives. At the beginning of my talk today, I told you the story of how an ancient form of craftsmanship transcended time and space and now stands to thrive into the future, being recognized as a form of contemporary art. By working through Shumei's core activities for the happiness of the people around the world, cultivating our own hearts that seek beauty, we too can transcend time and space through the transformation of our spiritual practices into common sense in our daily lives, which then spreads throughout the world. I'd like to end my presentation for the anniversary of Shumei in Europe by sharing a video about the Universal Symphony artwork created by Akihiko Toto for Shumei. Akihiko Toto, being one of the contemporary family members of the lineage that originally founded Karacho Studio 400 years ago, that spoke about earlier. While watching it, you might want to imagine you are actually there in Meishu-sama Hall in Misono, Japan. Please enjoy it.